Coming up.
So it's fast, flat, and no inflection.
More excited.
Flatter.
You can do it.
Well, I'm a bit like John Wayne. I do the same thing.
Did you work off a visual at that point?
You two love laughing.
Hello, hiya.
You did get the drama out of it.
Sibilant stuff there.
Did you notice we both slipped over translucent?
How do you say that?
How do you say that?
How do you say that?
How do you say that? Hello and welcome to today's episode of How Do You Say That, the podcast sponsored by BritishVoiceover.co.uk. Let me introduce my co-host, Sam Boffin. Hello, Sam.
Hello, hiya.
And now today's fun fact about Sam is that she used to work for Dodi Al-Fayed. Wow, so you were caught right up in the whole Diana thing, were you?
Oh, no, it was before the Diana thing. He owned a film company, and I read scripts. I literally we sat on the same desk. There was only me, him, and someone else in the office in Park Lane.
Oh, very, very smart.
I know. And my co-host is Mark Rice, who has been to New Zealand 8 times, but never to Australia. Why,
Yeah, weird,
Mark?
weird. Basically because I've got friends in New Zealand and don't know anyone in Australia, so I need to go, though.
Of course, we also have a special guest, who this week is David Vickery. Hello, David.
Hello, David.
David Vickery, special guest. Hello, how are you?
Well, we're all right. David, of course, has a voiceover and broadcasting background in his core. He did hospital radio, was a young DJ on Capital Radio in 1973, freelanced at Radio 210 Thames Valley, did a postgraduate in acting at Welsh College of Music and Drama.
And then, because of that, probably, he was an extra in Robin of Sherwood. That's probably my favourite fact about you.
Amazing.
Actually, David.
That was on the days off from college. And also just after college as well, actually.
That's so cool. I have to say, I think that's a very cool fact. And then you also became a Channel 4 continuity announcer in 1984. Presumably that was right at the beginning of Channel 4.
Yeah, 2 years
well, actually,
in.
It was the second year. So
yes, okay,
I was in the second wave of announcers that came through.
Wow.
And it was very exciting, I have to say.
I bet.
There you go. And after many years in continuity, he started presenting late night at TVS, and he launched Channel 5. He launched Channel 5 by himself.
I was the voice pre-Spice Girls.
Oh, really? Gosh, the Janet Street Quartet.
Everyone thinks it was the Spice Girls that opened, but there was a welcoming announcement, and that was
you.
me.
Fantastic.
That's so cool. And now you can be found as an announcer on BBC 2 and 4. He has voiced around 2,500 documentaries, and in a completely non-VO related fact, he plays croquet.
Oh, very smart. David, do you have another fun fact that you can share with us as well?
Actually, this is chosen because of you, Mark, and because of shopping telly.
Oh, I know. Yes, I know what you're going to talk about.
I know. I've had a couple of forays into presenting on one of the main shopping channels.
You can say it. It's QVC.
Okay, it's QVC.
Well, I'm at Ideal World. You've been at QVC.
Yeah, but you've lasted a lot longer at Ideal World than I ever did at QVC. I was one of those guest presenters. And on 2 occasions, they were stupid enough to choose me as an expert. And on the first occasion, I was trying to flog a dictaphone. I think it was one of the very early ones that linked up with audio on your computer. I didn't actually have a computer at the time, so I had no idea what I was doing. Anyway, I have a friend who was watching this. He said, "These were the 10 most terrifying minutes of my life." And he thought they were the 10 most terrifying minutes of his life. I can assure you they were the 10 most terrifying minutes of my life.
Well, let's have a look at the first script of our show, shall we? And say, how do you say that?
How do you say that?
Well, this is something that Sam's been working on this week. Why have you brought us this, Sam?
Well, thank you for that introduction. I brought you this because, I was going to do a sort of an explainer, and then I thought, no, when I discovered that David had a bit of acting in his background.
Acting background, yeah.
I thought, no, I'm going to do something different. So I've brought you a section of a script that is actually from Jekyll Hyde, actually.
Okay.
Oh.
It's reading a section of Jekyll's letters, in fact. Mm-hmm. So it could be either, that's why I chose it, because it could be either male or female. And so I brought it along because I thought it would be quite fun to do.
Absolutely. Well, I can but give it a try.
Yes.
All right, here we go. The powders were neatly enough made up, and when I opened one of the wrappers, I found the simple crystalline salt of a kind of pure white colour. The phial to which I next turned my attention was filled with yellowish, translucent liquor, which was highly pungent to the sense of smell and contained phosphorus and other volatile ether. This journal, little more than an ordinary book, contains everything. It covers many years and is filled with equations and formulas and notations of the foremost philosophers in history. Here and there, a brief remark is appended to a date, usually no more than a single word, and once very early in the list, followed by several marks of exclamation, total failure.
You got the drama out of that.
You did get the drama out of it.
I don't know why I went northern, it just kind of happened.
Yeah, because you see, I'm going to look at this in a completely different way because you've given us the context of how it was originally, but, I don't think I would ever be given something in that context. Right. So,
yes.
am I next?
Yes, yeah, absolutely
you are.
You are next.
Or is it Sam? Can I listen to Sam now?
You're definitely next. And so that's great that you're giving it a completely different, you're coming at it from a completely different direction.
Well, I'm a bit like John Wayne. I do the same thing, just in different contexts.
Do you know what we've been discussing over the last few weeks? That's how we think. We've got our own boxes and occasionally we step out of them, but you know where you are within your own box.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this as an interior voice and, just thinking and maybe, someone's overhearing and there's a little bit of explanation for them. It's going to sound absolutely dreadful now because obviously...
I'm sure it'll sound great. Go for it.
It's good. Interior voice is good.
Okay. The powders were neatly enough made up, and when I opened one of the wrappers, I found the simple crystalline salt of a pure white colour. The phial, to which I next turned my attention, was filled with yellowish translucent liquor, which was highly pungent to the sense of smell and contained phosphorus and other volatile ether. This journal, little more than an ordinary book, contains everything. It covers many years and is filled with equations, formulas, and notations of the foremost philosophers in history. Here and there, a brief remark is appended to a date, usually no more than a single word. And once, very early in the list, and followed by several marks of exclamation, total failure.
Nice.
Lovely.
Is it?
Lovely.
With the interior voice, it becomes almost more narrator-like, Sam, doesn't it?
Yes. Interestingly, Dave, within the context of this play, most of it is, played directly from the characters themselves and they make it up. But this is more like a narrator piece, actually.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
This does come in a little bit where it's whilst it's in the middle of towards the end, actually, of the drama, it is almost retrospective.
So, Sam, were you directing this one or were you in this one as well?
I was directing this one. So I'll do it in a way.
Excellent.
I don't know if it's the right way, but a way. Okay. The powders were neatly enough made up, and when I opened one of the wrappers, I found the simple crystalline salt of a pure white colour. The phial, to which I next turned my attention, was filled with yellowish translucent liquor. Which was highly pungent to the sense of smell and contained phosphorus and other volatile ether. This journal, little more than an ordinary book, contains everything. It covers many years. It's filled with equations and formulas and notations of the foremost philosophers in history. Here and there a brief remark is appended to a date, usually no more than a single word, and once, very early in the list and followed by several marks of exclamation. Total failure.
Nice. Do you know what I had in my head? I had in my head a maid from Downton Abbey. Does that make sense? That kind of style of person.
Yes.
Which I guess is almost in the early series is almost the right kind of period of time as well, almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I kind of thought she's probably London because it's set
a little
in
bit working class.
London. Yeah. Little bit.
But certainly below stairs, though.
Below stairs. Aren't maids always below stairs?
I suppose so.
Yes, and a very nice read as well. So
Yes, beautiful. I mean, beautiful read, yeah.
did you notice we both slipped over translucent?
Yes.
Isn't it funny
Yes.
how there is a word that you'd think, right, I know that's coming up and I know that I need to get that right. And of course you go and get it wrong.
You do, and it wasn't help because it's yellowish, translucent. There's a lot of sort of sibilant stuff there.
Well, and the liquor as well. Yellowish,
Yeah.
translucent liquor. It's,
yeah, absolutely.
got a nice feel about it.
How do you say that?
So, let's get to David to tell us about his script then, Sam. Why have you brought this one, David?
Okay, now I have a regular client, and this goes out across Europe. And the brief always is do not be expressive. Really temper it down. So you cannot make it expressive at all. It has to be incredibly flat. And not only, the problem with it being flat is that there are questions in here. Now, I don't know about you, but when you're asking a question, you kind of raise, you make it sound like a question.
Yes, you finish on an up inflection, yeah.
That's what I was looking for, Mark. You end up in an up inflection. But you've still got to try and keep it incredibly flat. So do I do this first or do you?
No, I think we'll get Sam to do it first.
Oh, yes, that's a good one.
I go first on the first one. Sam goes first on the second one. It seems fair.
So it needs to be flat, but it still needs to be a question, yeah?
And it needs to be quite fast.
Oh,
no.
So it's fast, flat,
my favourite.
and no inflection.
Okay.
Lovely. Okay, let's have a little go. Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you. It's time to review your financial planning for 2023. Are you paying too much tax on your investment income? What's the best way to transfer wealth to your family? How can you make the most of your pensions? Tompkins Shard specialises in holistic financial planning. We'll be happy to review your wealth management for 2023 and beyond. Get in touch today. TompkinsShards.com.
Flatter.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say flatter there.
Seriously. And listen, I have difficulty every time with them. And I was told, pop it flatter.
I'll tell you the word where you popped out of flat was specialises. Suddenly, so you, with the word specialises, suddenly it had it's like, oh, okay, we're back.
But it's also when you're asking a question at the very beginning, you're going, are you? What's the? How can? And, flat.
Flat.
Yes.
I love the fact you didn't mess around, though. I came straight off the bat and you went, flatter.
I've been told it so many times
I can imagine. No, it's absolutely.
I wanted to impose it on someone else.
Yes, no. So, Mark.
Do they like it flat because it's an international piece for an international audience and people that maybe don't speak English all the time?
I don't know because I never speak to the end client. I'm only ever told by the producer, flatter. They like it flat.
Whereas I've got a client that just keeps on getting me doing more and more excited. It's like, more excited, more excited.
So this is going to be interesting for you, Mark, because I always think of you as a very expressive voiceover.
Yeah, this is difficult.
You really go for it. And this time you've just got to let it...
Full throwaway mode.
Yeah.
Go on. Okay. You can do it.
All right. It's time to review your financial planning for 2023. Are you paying too much tax on your investment income? What's the best way to transfer wealth to your family? How can you make the most of your pensions? Tompkins Shard specialises in holistic financial planning. We'll be happy to review your wealth management for 2023 and beyond. Get in touch today, tompkinsshards.com.
Tompkins Shard's funeral directors. Was that really?
It felt horrible, that.
It's tough, isn't it? It really is. It's because it goes against the grain of everything else you do.
Absolutely.
That is fascinating, actually, because usually, particularly with financial stuff, you're often asked to warm it up, to make it, more palatable, to make it...
Are you paying too much tax on your investment income?
Clearly, that's not that's not their audience.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being completely flat and 10 being completely expressive, how far did I get there, David, do you think?
Well, I would say about 8.5. Yeah, it's just when you said, what did you say? You said throwaway, because it's not throwaway either. It's got to be impactful, but flat.
Well, I mean, I can't wait.
I know, I definitely, I want to hear this. This is...
Okay. It's time to review your financial planning for 2023. Are you paying too much tax on your investment income? What's the best way to transfer wealth to your family? How can you make the most of your pensions? Tompkins Shards specializes in holistic financial planning. We'll be happy to review your wealth management for 2023 and beyond. Get in touch today. tompkinsshards.com.
Wow.
Yeah, do you know what was really interesting? Because you'll both hate me for saying this. It sounded as if it could be done by an AI voice.
I know, and do you know, I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes when I've heard the finished product, when they've been fully mastered, I think the same. It's really weird.
I have to say, though, it's quite a feat to be able to get that rhythm was identical, particularly with the questions. That rhythm was identical across every single one. It's really difficult to do that because your instinct is to build, isn't it? Your instinct as a voice is to give it some kind of journey. And you didn't want a journey with this. You wanted it all to be, of a sort of similar rhythm. That was really interesting to listen to, actually.
How do you say that?
There is something that a small job that I had this week, and it might just be interesting because it doesn't take any time at all. But basically, how do you laugh? How do you do an overdub laugh? So you have got... It's very... But also, the interesting thing about this particular job was that the laugh had a very specific time of 0.982 seconds.
Wow. What?
So, now you two love laughing.
We do. Oh, you've listened to this podcast, have you?
I have listened to the podcast, yes. You two laugh a lot.
We do.
So imagine this. I'm in my 60s, and I'm overdubbing a 30-year-old, and they're playing a card game, and they're throwing suggestions in. And at the end, all of them together, ha, ha, ha. But you've only got 0.982 seconds. So what's your laugh?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I suppose I'd give them a variety to choose from, yeah.
Yes, well, I did.
I'm guessing my over-the-top, it probably isn't wanted.
Well, it's good for certain things.
It is. That's such a ridiculously small laugh.
That's interesting because when you were saying it, I heard 9.82. It's 0.982.
Yeah, just under a second.
It's less than a second, yes.
Oh, I see. I was thinking it was long, but it's short. So in fact, it's like...
Yes.
That's probably even too long. I don't know.
And you're doing it in conjunction with other people. So you're one laugh amongst about three. So they've all got to be a little bit different.
And David, did you work off a visual at that point? Could you see what you were
seen the
overdubbing?
video. I'd seen the video. But I was recording wild and just did a whole train of them.
Well, talking of laughter, here's the moment we now love, the wild card bit. Let's see if we can approach the scripts in a completely different way. David, can you pick one of the scripts, doesn't matter which one, and give Sam a wild card genre, please?
Okay, Sam. Here is your wild card. You are going to do the Tompkins Shard script.
Right.
And you are going to be cajoling a pussycat.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. It's time to review your financial planning, for 2023. Are you paying too much tax on your investment income? Come. What's the best way to transfer wealth to your family? How can you make the most of your pensions? Tompkins Shard specializes in holistic financial planning. We'll be happy to review your wealth management for 2023 and beyond. Get in touch today. tompkinsshards.com.
I love that. I could see the cat in my mind's eye.
So can I.
No, I didn't.
It's so funny, isn't it? Yeah.
But you know that bloody kitten didn't come. That kitten did not come. You were
No, I was thinking about it. I was probably a bit breathy in it, but
But I think you are. If you're trying to coax an animal, I can see that would be. Were you doing your fingers at the same time?
Yes.
Were you beckoning?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, I was moving and beckoning. Yeah.
Live it.
So
while you
both
record
visualization
it.
and a bit of movement as well. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Let me come up with a wild card for David, and let's do the dramatic piece. Let's do the Jekyll Hyde piece, but let's do it in a real kind of whispery, evil, whispery kind of way. So thinking I got to that because of Jekyll Hyde, obviously, but this would be more kind of evil. You know the way that Ralph Fiennes did He Who Should Not Be Named, Voldemort. That kind of whispery style.
Okay. The powders were neatly enough made up, and when I opened one of the wrappers, I found the simple crystalline salt of a pure white colour. The phial, to which I next turned my attention, was filled with yellowish, translucent liquor, which was highly pungent to the sense of smell, and contained phosphorus and other volatile ether. This journal, little more than an ordinary book, contains everything. It covers many years and is filled with equations, formulas, and notations of the foremost philosophers in history. Here and there, a brief remark is appended to a date, usually no more than a single word, and once, very early in the list, and followed by several marks of exclamation, "Total failure."
I had the hairs on the back of my neck really stood up there. That was because isn't whispery creepy?
Yeah, really creepy.
No, I was certainly. It took me to the kind of horror side of it very much.
I'm thinking now you probably wanted a bit more like a witch, didn't you? The powders were neatly enough made up, and when I opened one of the wrappers...
The thing that we know about this podcast, David, is that there are no wrong ways of doing it.
No, yes.
That's the nice thing. There are only clients that come up with, I'd quite like that a bit more, or I'd quite like that a bit more, or I'd quite like that a bit more.
But don't you find that when you've done something which is character-based, almost immediately afterwards you think, oh, actually, I wish I had done it that way. And you start thinking of all the other ways you could have done it,
yes,
as opposed to just accepting and being happy with the way you have actually delivered it.
No, I think you're right. Well, it's actually why it's often slightly easier, not entirely so, but it's often slightly easier to do 2 different takes. You know, people often ask you to send in 2, 3 maybe different takes.
Yeah.
It's often easier on a character piece to do that because you can choose even within the confines of the
I suppose, yeah, absolutely.
Of the sides.
And
that
it's
you're
also
given.
because they can actually hear you do something differently, so
Yes.
they know you're directable. If they then say, please, could you do it this way, and you'll have a stab at it. You'll go for it.
Absolutely. But it's often more difficult to imagine that, that corporate narration done in a slightly different way. But actually, if we approached that often fills people with horror, but if we approach that with a more sort of dramatic head-on, if you like, then it becomes a much easier proposition to ring the changes in a piece of narration, a piece of corporate narration.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
What have I got for you? Actually, I think I've got an okay one for you. I want you to do. I think I want you to do the to do David's script, but
Right.
I want you to be Mr. Smoothie Pants. I want you to be Mr. Charming, but somewhere in the middle, I want you to change.
Oh.
Get a bit angry. Actually, maybe your smoothiness isn't working. Choose your point. Choose your point.
Okay. It's time to review your financial planning for 2023. Are you paying too much tax on your investment income? What's the best way to transfer wealth to your family? How can you make the most of your pensions? Tompkins Shard specialises in holistic financial planning. We'll be happy to review your wealth management for 2023 and beyond. Oh, get in touch today. TompkinsShards.com.
Do you know, that's an approach, isn't it? I'm surprised people don't get us to approach that more often.
What I thought was, when I saw how can you make the most of your pensions, in my mind I thought someone had asked a really inappropriate question.
I think I might try that, actually. That's quite bullshit by the end. Say, get in touch today. So on that note, we also really want to hear your take on it. So we've put the scripts in the show notes. And if you'd like to have a try at one of them, send it in on an MP3 to podcast@britishvoiceover.co.uk. That'd be great.
As well as your MP3s, if you've got any voiceover questions that you'd like answers to, and we are not putting ourselves out there as experts, just we'll give you our opinion, you can send your question for future episodes to podcast@britishvoiceover.co.uk.
Yes. And our question this week is, if you wanted to break into a completely new voiceover genre, one that you'd never done before, how would you approach it? What would be your game plan?
That's a very good question.
Any ideas, David?
I think all of us have moments when we suddenly think, actually, I'd quite like to be doing that. I'd love to be doing video games. And I've probably done about 3 sentences over the course of the last 10 years. And so you're getting into a different market. People have the people they know and trust and use them. So you've got a very difficult job. And also the people who know you, even if they may also do, let's say, games, they see you in a particular way. So you've got to break down those barriers. And how do you do that? You can only send stuff to them. You can probably create your own little masterpiece and send it. That's not something I typically do. I don't know. So yes, you have to have the showreel. I mean, I did something about 4 years ago, which was a character showreel, and it didn't deliver anything new.
Interesting.
And I thought it was rather good, but it obviously wasn't good enough. I don't know.
During lockdown, I went to Kirsty Gilmore at Sounds Wild.
Oh, Kirsty Gilmore, that was who did mine, yes.
And we talked a long time about, that wasn't my area, but I would have to do this, and this. And I've got what I think is quite a good gaming reel. I've done a couple of really small bits, but nothing really has broken through yet. But you're absolutely right, David. It is about getting the right demo to start with, isn't it?
Absolutely. You've got to get it out there. And to a games producer, you're just another voice who's approaching them. You've got to come with something that's different and interesting. You've got to have your USP. And so you've got to create it yourself, because otherwise you're never going to get that first job,
You do games, Sam, but if you were to break into a completely new genre, what's your approach?
Well, it's a sort of similar thing. You've got to do your homework, haven't you, at first?
Yeah.
And, you've absolutely got to have the right demo, even if, yes, because that is what you would send off in the first place to open the doors. But then you've got to do all that research. You've got to meet the people, and you've got to be brave enough to, and I wonder if it's just as bad the more established you are, because the more established you are,
probably
it can be a real worry to suddenly go off-piste and do something completely out of your comfort zone.
I mean, we've talked many times about imposter syndrome, but it's exactly that when you're trying to go into a new genre, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think new people starting out have this all the time, in that you're starting from scratch. You've got to build up those contacts in a completely different area, and that's really tricky to do. So I guess a lot of it is research. You must be thinking, well, I know I do. If I want to do something new, you spend so much time doing all of the, the pre-research for it. You think, I'm not getting anywhere here. Well, of course, you're not getting anywhere at that point, but you've got to put it in to actually know who you've got to talk to, find out everything you can about that genre, find out people that that are working in it. Maybe they can give you some tips, not contacts. That's really, you can't ask people for contacts.
Yeah.
And of course, the one thing that's absolutely essential is to make sure that any email you send or any letter you send or however you approach somebody is always unique to that person. Don't send something out that is generic.
Yes, that idea, I've never been able to get my head around that idea of doing, sort of 300 bulk emails and thinking that that's going to land and actually make a difference, because I don't think it is. I think that you're much better, actually making real connections with people, getting out there and meeting people and letting people know that that's what you're interested in is massively helpful.
Well, David, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It has been a lot of laughter, as it always is, and I knew it would be with you. We'll put all of David's details in the show notes. Thank you so much for doing it.
Yes.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Sam and Mark, for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it.
And of course, we'll also be putting all today's scripts in the show notes so you can have a read yourself. And please do send them in to podcast@britishvoiceover.co.uk. We'd love to hear what you do with them.
And of course, it's the same email address for your VO questions too.
Yes. So please like and subscribe to the podcast and tell people about it and reshare the posts and that sort of thing.
Yes, that's it for this week. Of course, we'll be back next week. We're about to do it all together, David, if you can say the name of the podcast with us.
Okay.
We'll be back next week with more scripts and another voiceover guest where we'll be asking all together,
How do you say that?
How do you say that?